Alright, this is the new beginning of the stream. Sorry to anyone listening. But I think now the audio should be working. I think now we can hear everybody.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's probably balanced really wonky. This is literally a setup that's just, everything's just on my laptop. And I'm not going to use headphones because apparently my headphones break everything. I don't know. I don't know. Well, Ashley wrote like a 4-part dissertation. What did you say the other things were? What did you say the 4 things were?
Let's see. The one thing that I added at the last minute was something that I've been thinking about: the history of feminism and particular ethnic groups, not Jews, but different groups, and the future of the MRM and non-leftist critiques of evolutionary psychology and transhumanism and artificial uteri and transmaxing was the other one. So
I think artificial uteri will be an incredible step to advancing the MRM, because then people can't make the utilitarian argument, oh, well, women have the babies, we need to protect them and shit. Because, in my opinion, utilitarianism is garbage. That's not something people about.
yeah.
I don't disagree.
I mean, oh, we have more of same thing, therefore we need to protect that instead. Even if we, cause people to become literal slaves.
Did you say literal slaves?
Literal slave state, yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, sorry, go on.
No, that's just one of the reasons why I hate utilitarianism.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if it's, I mean, I guess I kind of wanted to start with, like, I don't know, some of Karen Straughn's recent activities that have been interesting. I just find it interesting, and I'm speculating as to what might be happening in a situation like this. So I've always found her popularity kind of paradoxical, and I have a feeling that she's popular more for her charisma and her verbal ability than her ideas. That's not to say that her ideas aren't good, but it's the other way around. I mean, I obviously agree with most of her ideas, but the thing is that she makes content that really should only logically have appeal to, like, true contrarians, like, I don't know, genetic determinists, MGTOWs. She seems quite black-pilled in most respects, and she even said that in a recent HBR talk, that she's black-pilled about the idea of things getting better for men. Like, for instance, the idea that if a problem's rooted in biology, that we can't just logic people out of it. And knowing that, I find it surprising that her work is so popular with MRAs, because it seems to suggest that their endeavors are mostly futile, at least like traditional activism, as opposed to like future technologies of the sort that Toto's interested in or what have you. And she's also backed off a bit from content production, and I wonder if this maybe has something to do with it. I just can't help but imagine that it gets like frustrating, the way that people say that they're interested in their ideas, but then they don't seem to fully internalize what she says. They always sort of add their own spin on it that brings things back round to the idea that we can logic people back to sanity or back to whatever. And there's lots of new people coming into the MRM that are sort of MRM, that are of like a traditionalist bent, that don't really want to hear this stuff. So I've got like more to say on that, but I don't know. Do you want to say something about that?
Do you have anything to say about that there?
No, I'm following it. All kind of makes sense. I'm also just I'm looking over the sources here.
Well, I guess I'll put my 2 cents.
Yes, not.
I guess the So she's black-pilled on men getting any sort of like rights reforms or whatever, right? Because okay, so I think that if we look at what's been going on, at least when it comes to stuff like men's quality of quality of life, even in a gynocentric society, has been improving somewhat, at least in comparison to, say, I don't know, 50 years ago. And this is, say, partially due to, say, like LGBT, which is kind of like this is what TFM pointed out, has kind of indirectly actually helped men's rights in a lot of aspects, such as, giving gay men rights, trans women's rights, because we don't view them as men. We have sort of gone away from, like, I mean, people are also less violent generally, so there's less war. So I think that if there is a time to actually push for men's rights, it's now, rather than
Yeah,
later. Or
I
like,
would I would
it would
agree
be
with
more
that.
practical
Yeah.
to do it than it would be in the past, is what I'm saying. Because
Yeah.
people have understood that gender roles, the idea of gender roles are starting to go away somewhat, or at the very least the rigidity of it. So like, even though obviously men like still make up vast majority of like labor, like physical labor and stuff in the dangerous jobs, men are just going to be attracted to that just in general, simply because men. But it's more, I guess, I'm more concerned about the voluntarism aspect of it. So like, I think that
Yeah.
we should.
Although
Or-
there is sorry, there's one critique of that I had a while ago. Well, it's not really a critique, it's just something that doesn't get pointed out a lot, which is that even those dangerous jobs that men are voluntarily opting into, the thing is that it's kind of an illusion of choice in a way, because you know for a fact that if men stopped doing it, then the government would try to force them to, or basically conscript them into sewage work or construction or whatever to keep civilization going, because we actually do need people doing those jobs to keep the world running. So it's kind of,
I think
it is, yeah.
Okay, if we're looking at it from like a status mindset, yeah, I think so. That's why I think that we should push women into those jobs as much as possible, with also understanding that there are probably not going to be as many women in those fields anyways. So, for example, when it comes to stuff like the draft, if we're gonna keep the draft, which we probably will for like a couple hundred more years until women start to get a little bit smarter, I would say. But I would say we could at the very least push women into the draft, and make them become second line units and nurses. They're not going to be working in the army in every single like aspect or same regard as men. Obviously, that'd be unrealistic, but I think eventually we can force their hand a little bit to push them into jobs like that more, because like, for example, women have been pushed
it
into
has to
those
be
jobs.
exactly the same. It has to be exactly the same.
Exactly.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted earlier. I realized if I mute myself, then it solves the echo issue without me having to use headphones. But,
So you were here?
Yeah, so I'm here. No, totally.
Yeah.
Are you being sarcastic? Exactly the same.
Well, yeah, at that point I was. But no,
yeah,
I
okay.
think that it's true that there's kind of a split among the red pill people, right? And there's sort of half of them that are willing to hear the more black pilled side of it, and then the other half are, I mean, they're really just purple pillars, right?
Well, I think I told you a while ago that as much as it's just kind of a meme within certain internet subcultures, I think that normie could be considered, normieism could be thought of as a valid, like, psychological category, something that you could actually define and measure. like I have my normie test. Like step 1 is whether the person in question has views of any sort that would never get mainstream airtime, or would only get airtime if it was being mocked. And then step 2 is whether they've changed their minds on anything that's emotionally important to them in the last X number of years, depending on their age. So, like, the first of those is a measure of conformity, roughly, and then the second is a measure of, I don't know, mental lability or intellectual openness, or whatever you want to say. So some people tick the first box, but not the second. So they have some contrarian ideas, but I guess they're just not very intellectually open. I sometimes call these people wayward normies. Sargon would be a good example because he hasn't really changed his tune on anything in like years, but he does have some contrarian ideas. And this is also the psychological profile of many traditionalists, in my opinion. And it seems inevitable that these wayward normies are a much larger percentage of the population than, I guess, true contrarians. And these wayward normies are the kinds of people who fill, or especially will in the future come to fill the rank and file, I guess, of most activist movements, including the MRM. So, like, they might be politically non-conforming in some ways, but they don't really want to hear bad news, and because they're a big enough percentage of the population that their views can actually be monetized, like Sargon, they have a vested financial interest in not telling people the bad news. And that's the kind of thing that Karen talks about doesn't really sell, apart from those really old one-hit wonder videos she did that were apparently popular. And it's similar to black-pilled content within the incel sphere, which doesn't seem to sell nearly as well as PUA bullshit. And I think as time goes on, as the MRM attracts more people, there will be a shift towards ideas that sell with these wayward normie people, purple pillars, more traditionalists. And it kind of seems like Karen has two personalities, because she seems to have the personality that's there to appease the masses, and then the one that she uses for like the deep dive videos on her blog, back when she wrote on her blog. One thing that really brought this into focus for me recently was listening to her discussion with Mike Buchanan like a week ago or something. Mike Buchanan said that he thought anti-feminism was becoming cool among young women, which is like ridiculous. I'm sorry, like it's really not.
It's retarded.
And
yeah.
And she seemed to
It's
go
like,
along
it's
with
like,
that.
It's like Phyllis Schlafly anti-feminism at best.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to add, though, before I add my point, I think that the problem, I think the issue is that I think we're going to, women really aren't doing anyways as a gender role anymore. Like, for example, the roles have become more and more automated because their roles were basically just me on like house chores, and those are becoming irrelevant. So either way, I think these traditionalists are going to have to realize, like, either way, women are going to have to come closer and like do jobs that are closer and closer jobs. Either way, we're already seeing this. Like, there's more women in the workforce now than ever 70 years ago, for example. So my argument is that we should use this to our advantage and force women to do these jobs anyways, because what the fuck else are they gonna do? They're just gonna lounge around or something?
Well, I guess, like, the steel man of the traditionalist take would be that women are going to homeschool their children, the children that they have. And the thing is, I could get behind that, like, taking your kids out of the
one
public.
thing. That's just
Yeah.
one thing, though. Like,
Sure,
that's
yeah.
not going to be enough.
And it's also mostly not going to happen, I don't think, because the public school system is too convenient, and most people just aren't motivated enough to want to educate their own kids.
And again, I don't think women would want to go to do that. And I think generally they would opt to at least try to do. It depends, because obviously, they have to choose between working or having kids. Obviously, really both.
Yeah.
I think there would be a good percentage of women who would just say, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna go into the workforce, and this will be more and more common as we see like stuff like artificial wombs come, where they can just say, "Fuck
I
that,
mean,
I don't have to worry about being menopausal anymore."
I personally doubt seriously that we're going to be able to talk women around to being engineers, for instance, in significant numbers.
Not engineers, no, I'm not saying that. Like, I'm talking about
Yeah.
stuff that's like a little bit less useless. Like, it maybe
Sure.
like in hundreds and hundreds of years we could see like women engineers, sure, but like what I'm arguing is make their jobs a little bit less useless. I'm not saying put them in like male roles and like expect them to be like just as competent or just as like the same role as men. I'm just saying it would be better for both men and women to at least push them a little bit into that direction.
So do you think that in like 1,000 years, maybe we could just, I don't know, forget about gender roles altogether because everything will be robotified? Like,
So it depends, because gender roles are based off gender dimorphism. Most of them say.
Right.
So,
but I'm saying, do you think automation could advance to the point where those differences become totally irrelevant and we can all just spend the rest of eternity inside computer servers playing World of Warcraft or whatever the fuck we want to do?
I mean, I don't know, because like that's like very like galaxy brained transhumanism shit. So like, if we get to that level, yeah, I think it'll basically make it irrelevant. But
I think
Yeah,
that, barring...
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say that, like, barring everybody getting, plugged into the hedonium matrix or whatever, short of that, yeah, I think that people will probably largely just do everything unisex. And then what's gonna end up happening is, like, all of these very, very gendered expressions, they're gonna be kind of seen as like archaic or like very theatric or like silly things to do. That's not to say that everybody is gonna be like an androgen, like robot army clone with that awful bang haircut and the big glasses.
Yeah.
That's what I imagine.
Yeah.
We're all gonna become astral twink androgens, and we're gonna rule the galaxy.
Yeah. So, people will be able to do pretty much whatever they want, I guess. But I think the question is whether or not we'll see significant strides in changing women's behavior until, genetic engineering or something kicks into high gear, which I think is kind of what Toto was like hinting at, maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean, with women's behavior, it's like more so based socially. So like, although like maybe the inherent behaviors may not be like, they're gonna go, if men say they're gonna do this shit and they actually like go and do it, women will follow, because women's morality is more so based socially. Abstract concepts such as justice, like which Derek pointed out in the video. I think it's one of the differences between justice based and whatever female more
care based.
But basically, yeah. I think that women's behavior will change with society's behavior. So it really mostly relies on men, is what I'm...
As a side note, it's just made me think, it's not related to what Toto was saying, but traditionalists in the MRM and elsewhere, you hear people with a lot of delusional beliefs about male and female nature, and they have all kinds of weird coping mechanisms. Like, you'll hear the sentiment that a lot of problems could be solved if men start saying no to their wives more, or men need to be better at setting boundaries in their sexual relationships. And I agree with like the sentiment, the underlying sentiment to that, obviously. But the problem is, if you're a sub 8 male, like a sub 8 out of 10 male in the modern context, you're not really in a position to set any boundaries with women, because setting boundaries in such a way implies that you're valuable, which is not the case for men below an 8 out of 10 in looks these days. I mean, it's like saying a third-rate 16-year-old intern who's just joined his company to be more forthright in setting boundaries with his boss, because the boss has just like an endless supply. of prospective employees that are equally, if not more valuable. So his incentive to give a shit about the intern's quote boundaries is basically nothing. And with men and women, this is the analogy, because it was different in the past because divorce was stigmatized and women's options were more limited, but they're not now. And you'll hear all this shit like men just need to take the lead, or they just need to become alpha males, or whatever this means, and then all their problems will vanish. But apparently not, because it's still the case that men with all those masculine characteristics or traditional family oriented traits or whatever, they still get destroyed in divorce court, and they're subject to the exact same social and legal sanctions as the rest of the male population, which benefit women at men's expense. And women also don't want men to lead them. That's why feminism exists. So yeah, that was just that's the end of topic 1, if you're wondering.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And like that's the thing, is there's a difference between giving advice that can actually have a practical impact. Like there are specific things that people can do, if they know early enough, like if they're in a situation like that, or at least how to avoid it. But then just telling someone, oh, if you act in this way or just do this thing or just comply, things are gonna work out. It's
Yeah.
Yeah, it would require like the vast majority of the male population to actually have to have that sort of standard set that starts themselves for it to actually work. So I would say men should just not base their validation so much off of female attention. But then that fucks over the straight men, because they want the women, they want their
Yeah.
and shit.
I'm actually
I think we should just turn all the straight men gay forcibly, and we should have homo state.
But well, you won't have to force men. Once there's like a pill invented, right? Like a pill, like a gay pill, then it's gonna be popular.
Yeah.
I'm actually more popular than the straight pill.
Oh yeah, awesome.
I'm actually gonna come back around to that later, and about like alternative sources of mental validation for men.
But like that Sam Hyde
you're just gonna conclude that we need to give everyone the right drugs.
Yeah. It's a Sam Hyde skit where everyone's a dude.
Yeah.
There's a gender war.
Sorry, that was me. I was attempting to solve the puzzle early.
So like Derek, did you want to like interject anything else, or like your own topic or whatever?
No, the only other thing is that I do think it's a good idea to. It also just shows why using the terms like sexual market value is so. It's so apt, right? Because people all the time will talk about power disparities if there's like money involved, and if you just put it in those terms, then it kind of makes it obvious what's going on. So that was another thing.
Yeah. So I guess next I'll do like the big topic, which was like non-leftist critiques of Evo Psych. So yeah. I think most leftist criticism of evolutionary psychology is rooted in just the fact that leftists don't like the idea that humans have an inherent nature. It's inconvenient to their social standards or progress, or what they would see as progress that they want to make in society. But there are other criticisms of the field, like for one thing, it's subject to the same flaws that the other sciences are, which have been enumerated pretty extensively. Like there are alarmingly high acceptance rates to medical journals, peer-reviewed journals, describing diseases that are literally impossible. And there's other research also showing that credentialed psychologists, many of them, don't have a firm grasp of concepts that are taught in entry-level stats courses. And obviously this doesn't mean that you should just discard scientific research, or that you should take some random guy's opinion as being more likely to be true than an academic's, automatically. But you can't assume that just because an academic said something that means it's true. You need to have some kind of vetting process yourself to deal with papers if you enjoy like reading academic literature for fun. What I tend to look for are like lots of replications, so the hypothesis is being tested many times by different people, large sample sizes, small p-values, which means basically that like the probability of the result of the experiment being due to chance is ideally 1% or less. What did the experimenter control for? Is it a lab study or like a naturalistic study? How significant are the relationships? And the thing is, even if you look at all of those things, there's no such thing as an experimental design that can account for every single variable. And I don't think there's anything wrong with using a little intuition from time to time. Like, there's nothing wrong with just saying, I think your study's bullshit, if it produces a result that's clearly at odds with observed reality. So on Twitter a while ago, just as an example, I saw a study which claimed that makeup doesn't make a significant difference to women's attractiveness. And I just rejected this outright because it's so obviously stupid. Like, if you've seen any of those makeup transformation videos, it's very obvious that makeup is capable of moving your facial attractiveness several points up the looks hierarchy, even if you're not an expert at applying it. And I guess this would be true for men too if men use makeup. Yeah. And in practice, female mate choice is something that we have fairly certain knowledge of at this point. There's masses of data on it from different websites.
You linked to this YouTube video on the power of
Hey,
makeup.
Mom, what are you up to?
Putting up the tree.
We haven't decorated the house yet.
Sorry.
I just wanted to make...
You myself. Okay.
Are you just watching a like on mute? Or...
There was just an ad I had to skip past.
Yeah.
What was this? 13 amazing makeup transformations. You said go like a minute and a half in.
There's one at like 150-ish that I thought was particularly impressive.
Let me see how this appears on the screen. Ooh, looks like it.
Yeah, 150, 155.
I'm just gonna play it muted. Another ad showed up. How annoying.
Yeah.
It's so weird seeing American ads lately. Is it this one? Holy shit. His teeth.
Yeah.
Wait, she already fixed her teeth.
Yeah, I don't understand what she did to her teeth, but like if you compare her from like 255 from 155, like if you just look at those two frames, that gets the point across, I think.
Oh wow, yeah.
Derek?
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, I think Evo Psych is relevant to this because obviously most people don't read academic research for fun, and the trouble with psychology and biology is that the hypotheses in those sciences are verbal in nature, which is one reason they attract more women. Just as an aside, like, women are more predisposed to verbal aptitude if they're at the high end of IQ, and that makes them different from... It makes biology and psychology different from physics and chemistry, because in physics and chemistry it's like maths from beginning to end, whereas in the psychology the mathematical element is introduced later. So like it attracts verbally intelligent people who are kind of showmen. They have a predisposition towards showmanship and storytelling. People who are trying to sell you something in effect, and this isn't a problem with the idea of a science of evolutionary psychology. It's the populations of people who are attracted to talking about it because they've read pop sci literature on it, and they have their own vested social interests to promote, like PUAs. I mean, the basic idea behind evolutionary psychology would be like any other science, where you just you put forward a hypothesis about the evolutionary mechanisms that might have led to the development of a certain phenotype, like some characteristic or behavior of the organism. I think Toto just left. Did I scare him off? Oh no, he's back.
No, he's back. He's good.
Sorry.
And when you go out as an experimenter, you either find evidence that's consistent with that hypothesis or you don't, and that's pretty much how all science works. But online, I've noticed there's this like overwhelming culture of citing ideas that just come from popular Evo Psych authors or celebrities like Jeffrey Miller, whether or not their ideas stand up to actual scrutiny. And it's often the case that their ideas are just on the face absurd, or it's also sometimes the case that they were later discredited or failed to replicate. So a good example of this is the literature on female mate choice and menstruation. So people in this community kind of take it on faith that women's preferences in mates change over the course of the menstrual cycle, even though that's like failed to replicate a bunch of times. And the only consistent finding seems to be that women have like higher sex drives on their most fertile days, rather than actually having different preferences. It doesn't look like there's anything there otherwise. And there's also this whole idea of the handicap principle, which is this notion that the reason peacocks have such elaborate plumage is because it's a handicap that signals extreme health or vitality or whatever to the females. And that's been tested as well. The thing is that even intuitively, if you just want to make a case based off your intuition, the idea that the tail apparatus makes it more vulnerable to predators doesn't seem to make a ton of sense. I mean, it makes it look larger, and more threatening, and, weird and strange. I'm not saying that that makes it scary to predators, but you can make a case based on intuition there that's just as compelling as whatever people say about it being attractive to predators. And there's also evidence that the tail plumage in peacocks doesn't impede motor coordination much, and peacocks with lower reproductive success are actually more vulnerable to predators, and low reproductive success in peacocks is determined by how they look. So that calls into question the idea that the plumage is so evolutionarily costly in that sense. And there's another idea that's come into vogue recently. I read a paper on this, which I have sent, which is that animals and most like higher organisms, like mammals, operate from sort of an ingrained sense of beauty that stands apart from adaptive benefits. And this has been studied with respect to like symmetry. The reason symmetrical objects are more pleasing to the eyes is because it's easier for the brain to process. I guess it's kind of like where the phrase easy on the eyes comes from. And animals with highly evolved visual cortices are susceptible to finding certain types of visual stimuli attractive purely because they stimulate the brain's reward centers. And it looks like that's what facial attractiveness is in humans. And that's how those traits get passed on, people's facial traits. A lot of people don't like this idea because rather than simply being a matter of specific, quantifiable, desirable traits like health or stamina or whatever, which you could sort of assign a robot to detect in theory if you wanted to, it seems to require that the animals have subjective experience, consciousness, and it suggests that mate choice is bound up in the subjectively experienced beauty, quote unquote, of the object of their desire. And a lot of people seem to think that this is a little bit too much to expect from animals. And also people don't like it just because it seems arbitrary, even though it's an idea that Darwin himself actually discussed. The idea that animals have an inherent sense of beauty, and there are now people who are seriously empirically investigating it. And the way this applies to Evo Psych in humans is a lot of Evo Psych talking heads and commentators and actual researchers place this just tremendous overemphasis on the body, which doesn't really strike at the core of what sexual attractiveness is about, in my opinion. Like the way some people talk about waist to hip ratio in women, you would think men went around saying, well, her face is hideous, but she does have really pleasant hips. And of course, this is like quite detached from reality. I mean, the reality is that facial attractiveness seems to trump nearly everything, and that's even more true for males, I think. And the reason that this is rarely addressed by most psychologists is because it's not clear if there is a traditional adaptive, quote unquote, role to facial attractiveness in like any sense that most people would recognize. Because like peacock feathers or beetle horns and whatever, people speculate that facial attractiveness in males acts as a signal of other characteristics that might be desirable in offspring, like masculine personality, for instance. And the idea is that the look is a proxy for those other things. But if you look at men in the most masculine environments that you can think of, like the army or the fire service, it's pretty clear that those relationships are weak. I mean, it's not as if men in those professions typically or even regularly have a chiseled bone structure or a under eye area or full heads of hair or so on. In fact, women often discover to their dismay that these men don't have any of those traits. So they go the look for the look over the behaviors that they supposedly represent. Because if that weren't the case, then women would make a particular deal of chasing soldiers or firefighters or MMA fighters, and they don't unless they're good-looking men.
Well,
There's
then I
evidence.
wonder,
Yeah.
does that
Sorry?
imply then that when there's like a selection preference that's for something like facial attractiveness, that's like an indicator of luxury or something? Because it seems like otherwise, adaptively, people are thinking, oh, well, it must be that people are assuming that it signals some other thing.
Yeah. I mean, it is a quandary, a real quandary, but it seems to be much older than that for it to have anything to do with culture. Um, well, although, sorry, like the appeal of facial attractiveness physiologically seems to be very hardwired, and it goes back, since probably the beginning of time. Especially given that we can observe this sense of beauty in like other animals. But I guess the with like the birds that have these elaborate mating displays and so on, which don't seem to have any particular adaptive benefit aside from just the way they look. But like it's more like the relative weight that's placed on attractiveness changes depending on how impoverished the culture is. Because in a super impoverished culture, then women will trade off to a certain extent with other things. I don't know if that's what you were getting at.
I mean,
Derek?
partially, yeah. Mostly, I was just commenting on an idea that that the more like attractiveness or more attractive features that you see that don't seem to have any other function, that it's just kind of like a rough indicator or a rough bar of like how much luxury there is in that
Yeah.
scenario.
And the other thing is that you would expect, so there are those like weak relationships with personality or with health and so on, and intelligence. So being particularly sub 5 is related to low intelligence and a variety of like bad health outcomes, but it doesn't look like it's a linear relationship at all. It clearly isn't the case that the most attractive people are the most healthy or intelligent or what have you, and you would expect these kinds of weak correlations to emerge even if the men are being selected on a looks basis, because there's this thing called pleiotropy where genes perform different functions. So it could be, for instance, that like selection for good facial development in men, facial development that's attractive to women, results in drawing from genetic resources that would otherwise be suited to other functions like personality or heart health or I don't know, God knows what else. And that's called the genic capture model. It's in one of the papers I linked about Darwin's sense of beauty, and it's also been studied in birds and other animals. So there are also there are instances of people venerating people in the field of Evo Psych who use just bizarre methods to reach results that they're clearly motivated to find, like Jeffrey Miller, who's kind of a celebrity. He co-wrote this cringy book with a PUA, which was called Mate. That was the title, one word, in which he argued, among other things, that men who want to be attractive to women need to pay attention to the shoes they're wearing and their fashion choices. And the methodology that they used to reach this conclusion was literally just asking women what they're attracted to, with all the attendant, the obvious follies attendant to that. He's also known for having an obsession with female mate choice in general. And I think that's another Achilles heel of the field and some of its most prominent advocates. And you see it in the MRM too, like people who draw from this kind of literature. So it's I've heard people say that women select men based on their ability to be competent or create civilization, or that male competition for females is what sort of drives humanity forward, however it's defined. And I just think that's completely insane. Like, I understand the intuitive appeal of it, but, you know, it clearly isn't the case that women chase after the most intelligent or the most creative, the most whatever guy in the room. And a lot of the biggest, like, geniuses in history were celibate. And if you look at places that have the most brutal competition between men for access to women, polygynous cultures, like some parts of sub-Saharan Africa, it doesn't look as though the whole civilization thing is going anywhere with them anytime soon. And by contrast, in Europe, where there was a system of, you know, fairly egalitarian monogamy for most of our history, that's where most scientific and technical innovation has occurred and still does occur. And it only started around like the 1500s. That's something that people tend to forget. People just kind of didn't invent things, relatively speaking, up until around the 1500s, or certainly before like 1000 AD, when people talk about inventions from then. It's a lot of sound and fury about very little, basically. So if it had anything to do with females' mate choices, why did it take that long? Out of like at least 100,000 years of human evolution, women only care about men's ability to build or create in as much as it's useful to them or to their offspring. Otherwise, they don't care, like they really do not care. And there are much better evolutionary theories that explain the origin of high intelligence, individualism, creativity, all those traits which have very little to do with female choice, and we've discussed some of them. So like, Europeans seem to have become more individualist and non-conforming with time because of the bans on consanguineous marriage and the feudal systems they lived under. There's actual research, which like I've got a link to, showing that the length of time a certain region of Europe lived through the impositions the Catholic Church made on family structure, like banning cousin marriage and so on, predicts how high that area today scores on measures such as individualism, creativity, openness. And I think it's because society wasn't based so much on kinship networks anymore. There was this sort of dissolving of big kinship groups into smaller nuclear families. So there was less of a social barrier between people of different families, if that makes sense. And there was less of an expectation that one person represented his family in-group, and you had to start treating people as individuals. And conformity naturally goes down in that environment as well, when you see yourself as working for your own benefit instead of your family's reputation or whatever. Hi, JWille. I think he's just coming.
Oh, hello.
Oh, well.
Yeah, it came in.
Hey, nice to.
Well,
nice
I
to
just
see
have
ya.
one thing to add to the whole ordeal you're discussing right now. Because I've seen some examples of countries that are like very like individualistic, right? Like they're like very like self-sufficient people in a way. I might be wrong here, but and then they're like very conformist. I don't know if that exists, but I just wondered if you thought that might be possible.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a particular definition of individualism and collectivism that's like different from the colloquial one, I guess. So individualism basically describes the social system I just described, where it's basically Northern Europe, small nuclear families, and more of an emphasis on public order, because there's the bonds between families aren't as strong, so people see members of the population as being closer to them. Whereas, ironically, like in collectivist cultures, like some Asian cultures, and certainly in the Arab world, you see this like clannishness, because they have these huge extended kin groups, cousin marriage, and so on, with the result that they have sort of very little regard for public order, and they sort of don't give a shit or have any empathy for people outside their small local networks. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
So
that makes perfect sense, actually. Like, I actually believe
Yeah.
that cultures that, I think that almost all cultures, to a certain degree, have overvalued the family, and when I mean by that, I don't mean like I need to explain what I mean by that, and that is that it's like two different types of families, right? That is the family that a person is creating, and the family one is born into. And I think that, and what I mean by family creating is the family when someone decides to either have a partner or reproduce, or just reproduce, and then raise kids. That's like founding a family, right? While the parents or sibling one is born with, it's like the family that one is that wasn't chosen, right? And the family that you didn't create, the family that you were born into, is extremely overvalued, in my opinion.
Yeah. So another example of this, something I was talking about, the over focus on mate choice in evolutionary psychology. So like physical strength is kind of another example of that. There's significant sexual dimorphism for physical strength in humans, but it clearly isn't the case that women chase the strongest guy in the room, as lots of black pillars have pointed out. You know, women don't chase strong men; they chase the tallest, most facially attractive men. So then it's like interesting, because it's like, how else do you account for the physical strength disparity? But what's interesting about that is that humans are actually less sexually dimorphic than other primates are, and especially other apes.
You were like somewhere in the middle between bonobos and like chimps.
Yeah, I mean, one possibility is that it's just a holdover from sexual selection in pre-humans, and that makes sense because you see even larger size and strength differences between the sexes in other primates. So there's a role, I think, for intrasexual competition among males rather than competition for mates as such. I think that's a factor that's hugely underestimated. So like human males have larger canine teeth than females. I think the ratio is something like 1 to 1.15, but it's much larger in other primates like baboons, I think, and so on. And that's also an adaptation for warfare. It's an adaptation for warfare between the males of competing groups who are competing over the same territory for resources, which in primates means basically food. So this would obviously create a selection pressure for physical strength regardless of female choice, because in a situation of war, if you think about it, weaker males, even if they'd already coupled with females and had children, or in humans, like in, say, a medieval context, there would be married men who'd already had kids who went to war. You know, it's not like the outcome of the battle would determine who got to mate. So it wasn't anything to do with female choice, I think. The physically weaker men, though, would still leave fewer descendants, obviously. They would still be less reproductively successful, just because they'd be more likely to be killed in battle rather than being a direct result of mate choice. And that's like a particular obsession of most Evo Psych people. And that's also like, there's like Jeffrey Miller's bullshit theories. He thinks that music evolved to impress women. Like, music and art evolved as sexual ornaments to impress women, even though it's just as frequently exercised by women as men. And we have loads of examples from cultures where creating music was something that was basically seen as sacred, and it was restricted to the male tribal elders. Like, they were the only ones who were allowed to participate in it. So I don't think that holds up. And the same also applies the other way around. So, like, to male mate choice, I remember Derek a while back said that Brian Martinez, in his discussion with Stefan Molyneux, he said that men and women shouldn't criticize each other as a class because the traits that men and women have only exist because of basically mate choice. And this is another kind of like an Evo Psych trope. But the problem with that is, like, take female neuroticism. This is a trait that women obviously didn't evolve because of anything to do with men's mate choice. I mean, it's the opposite, really. Men tend to complain about neurotic women. So it evolved, I think, because you have to be sensitive to threats to handle infants properly, especially in like a pre-modern context or a Stone Age context. And women who weren't so neurotic probably had fewer surviving offspring for that reason, I think. And that's the most likely reason that women are more neurotic than men. You don't need to bring male mate choice into it at all. So, yeah. Other tropes would include sort of the idea that, and this might be controversial, but I've got like tons of references and all sorts. So, a lot of people still think that money or education or so on are of extreme importance in attracting women, and that men's sexual market value increases with age. But like, the idea that men's SMV increases with age comes from an Evo Psych trope called the JWille mating strategy. So the idea is that basically women see good-looking men as short-term prospects, but they look to men who are less good-looking with money, therefore older, having acquired more resources for long-term relationships. But in real life, it clearly doesn't shake out this way. The only reason it looks like a JWille mating strategy is because in the past, sometimes a woman would end up with a man who wasn't so good looking with money because he would help raise children. This is also called, it's been called beta boxing. So these days, the only time a woman would ever do that is if she's like 40 and she wants to have a kid like tomorrow. That's the one situation where a woman will take like a beta bucks over a good-looking man or a Chad, is if her time is rapidly running out and she just wants a wallet, basically, whatever the personal cost is to her. And needless to say, those relationships tend not to be healthy or well-balanced. So if she has the freedom to choose, and women do have the freedom to choose these days, obviously, the rule is that women will choose the better looking man. So it's increasingly more of a singular mating strategy. And also the average relationship age gap in the West and in all developed countries is like 1 to 3 years, certainly not like 10 years or anything like that. The overwhelming majority of marriages are pretty endogamous with respect to age. Only about 8% of marriages in the US are with a man who's greater than 9 years older. And even historically, this was also true. A lot of people think this was way more common in the past, but like the average age of marriage for women, I think, was in the early 20s in 19th century Britain. And with men, it was the later 20s, like 26, 27, 28. So this isn't a recent thing. Assortative mating for age seems to go way back. And assortative mating for income seems to go back a surprisingly long way too. So a lot of people think that money's very important. Like, there are studies showing that women are more sensitive to economic cues and whatnot, but it's difficult to know than men. But it's difficult to know what to make of that in practice, since men's interest in women's money is basically like zero. So like 1,000 times zero is still kind of zero. It's like you have to look at what it means in real life. And I think Elizabeth Hobson was the first person who pointed this out to me, actually, was that most, like the great majority of marriages and long-term partnerships in general are homogamous with respect to money. So men and women who are married seem to have similar amounts of income. And hypogamy is that is a woman marrying a man with less money. Seems to be at least competitive with hypergamy now. There are like a significant number of female breadwinners now. And I've also looked at studies done in the US in the mid to late 20th century, which showed that women marrying up in economic status wasn't anything that was even close to an overwhelming trend even back then. And studies from Poland in the 19th century, which basically show what I always had kind of an intuitive sense of, which is that at least in the West, people married members of their own class. And you would sometimes have a situation where a peasant would marry like a landowner or something like that, but it wasn't the rule. And I've also looked at studies from the Great Depression and also studies looking at economically deprived areas in the modern US. And the Great Depression didn't seem to lead to an increase in inceldom. And that's what like the standard red pill theory would predict. It would predict that women would basically ditch those men and chase the more financially able men. Rather, what it seems to do is that they already had suitors who were impoverished because of the Depression that they were planning to marry, and obviously in those times it was understood that that meant having and providing for children on the father's income. So they delayed marriage to their suitors that they already were dating or whatever, until economic times were better and they could better support a family. So male impoverishment seems to lead to delayed marriage if women feel that they need a husband for financial support, but it doesn't seem to lead to extended inceldom or bachelorhood. And it's kind of difficult as far as physical attractiveness goes. It's difficult to find references from anything before the 20th century that mention the importance of looks to sexual relationships, because I guess people just didn't enjoy talking about it. But I did find one study from Sweden that seemed to back up my general theories or whatever, which looked at smallpox scars in the 18th and 19th centuries. And it says that people with smallpox scars married or remarried, if they did, it would almost always be with a person who'd had an equivalent experience or who'd also survived smallpox. And that basically suggests what I've suspected about like changing trends in female choice, because like basically in the past women were willing to date men who were their looks match, who were equivalent on the look scale, in exchange for financial protections, and also just because their pool of options was smaller. But once their options opened up and they also no longer needed those financial protections because the society became so wealthy and they could earn their own money, we had basically runaway looks hypergamy. And I've come round to thinking that looks hypergamy is the only kind that really matters. And this applies to education as well, since as of like a couple of years ago, with marriages in the US, marriages with a less educated man were just as common as the opposite, marriages with a less educated woman. I sent that to Derek in Discord, and Derek, you made some comment about like Down syndrome children or what have you, which was interesting.
But something I would like to say about how women, how our behavior is like. Yeah, I want to say that that the current behavior, the current instinct, and human behavior, how we have evolved, it's not like it's technically how pre-human species were descended from evolved. That's what our behavior is, because humans have not existed for that long to evolve significantly different behaviors in many ways. And that is why the Australopithecus and like the pre-human ancestors, their behavior and their like that is actually what had more effect on our psychology than the more present one, if that makes sense.
Australopithecus. Oh, okay, never mind. I remember that's what the Murdoch episode was about. Sorry, continue.
More Gibbs for Australopithecus people.
Jordans.
Just to wrap up this topic, like I do issue this with like one caveat, I guess, and this is also really interesting. So there is data from countries like Japan that shows that men in like the lowest decile of income have less sexual success than other groups of men. But I think what people ignore is that this is confounded by a lot of other significant factors. So poor men are, and like I've got evidence for all of this, which Derek has linked, I think, in the description of the video. So, excuse me. Poor men, men who are in poverty, are less facially attractive. They're more likely to be obese, have higher rates of obesity, higher rates of mental illness. They're more socially isolated, and I suspect more isolated from the opposite sex. And they're also shorter. And
yeah, I think diet can affect like facial bone structure, facial
Yeah.
features, and like chin, like length and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So
And you already know, like, the experiments showing that obese people and facially unattractive people are discriminated against in hiring, which we've also linked. And I'm guessing this is probably particularly true in hospitality jobs that require a lot of engagement with the public, and that's like a big chunk of the economy these days. I would imagine that it's also true of mental illness, although I'm not sure. And poor people are more likely to suffer from mental illness than other groups. So, like, because employers don't want these traits in their employees, the underclass gets filled with these men, since we're talking about men in this case, who are disproportionately, like, just go all the way down the list. Obese, facially unattractive, short as well, and insane. And these are obviously all...
They all stack together, too. They all, like...
yeah.
Like you can have all of them, and then it's... Yeah.
And these are all characteristics that are highly undesirable to women. Also, being poor is obviously correlated with low intelligence, and low intelligence is correlated with facial unattractiveness, which I've also got like loads of evidence for. IQ, intelligence, is like it's an indicator of overall genetic quality or fitness, or it certainly seems that way. So it goes both ways. On the one hand, employers don't want people with these undesirable traits. They want people with more attractive traits, so they're rejecting those people who then fill the underclass. And then on the flip side, low IQ people who, by dint of being low IQ, tend to be poor, just by dint of their low genetic quality, also have undesirable traits which are unappealing to women, such as facial unattractiveness. And there's also evidence to suggest that poor people have smaller social networks, and I've linked all of it. There was this survey data done in Britain showing that poor people are disproportionately likely to say that they have only one or no friends, which obviously limits your access to women if you have a small social circle. And I also suspect that poor men are likely to work in jobs that are just full of men. So those are just a bunch of factors that I think are severely confounding the relationship between money and sexual success in men. I have a very hard time believing that Liam Hemsworth or like Sean O'Prey would be unsuccessful with women, even if they were just janitors. You know, they would be really popular janitors. And that's the end of topic 2. So,
but I also
well, I just want to summarize here really quick. The last like 5 or 6 links you have, like that chunk that's related to this topic, are poverty and obesity / height, poverty and insanity, poverty and social isolation, obesity and hiring discrimination, attractiveness and earnings, the height premium, height and income, and then facial attractiveness and IQ. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just kind of paints a picture. So those links are all in the bottom chunk of the ones in the description of the video.
Yeah. So yeah, that wraps up, I guess, the second topic. I'm gonna go get a drink. So.
But that actually also explains why leftism is retarded. Like I can never see more and more reason why that's the case. And that is like if we know that a lot of low IQ tend to be related to poverty, right? Having all these social programs that are intended to like relieve poverty, right? with all this free stuff, right? That's just basically the same thing as most leftist policies, which is like supremacy of the inferior. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I just didn't know. But why do you think about that? If poverty is related to like a low intelligence, right? And if you have a leftist economy, you're basically gonna like take money from the productive and give to the unintelligence.
Yeah, that's kind of the issue with it, is that it's something that would be ethically permissible, right? Like, just who cares, what your IQ is or whatever in a normal society, as long as you're peaceful, right? But then once you put it in a government context, now it becomes an issue where it's like, well, now this has like a social cost that we're all forced to pay, and that actually does really fundamentally change the dynamic in a way that's bad in the long run.
Oh yeah, most definitely, and especially as if you lived in more of a capitalist, proper capitalist economy, right? Then that means that that the people who are poor, born in poverty, would have easier to get access to wealth, right? While people who were born into wealth and were stupid were more likely to lose it. So like in a more freer economy, right? Then there would be more of a like the people who are stupid would fail and the people who are successful will succeed. So like if you really want to address poverty, right, making people who don't have to be poverty less poor, then wouldn't getting rid of the government help with that?
Sorry, what? I missed the last part of what you said.
So if someone want to like want to make less poverty, want to reduce poverty, right, wouldn't getting rid of the government lead to less people being poor?
Well, yeah, in theory, right? That's their stated goal.
But like the problem is that if you involve government, that's just kind of like rather than to give, that's just like treating something that rather than curing it, right? Because government program isn't relieving poverty; it is like it is like making it worse.
Well, because it's an unnatural solution to the problem, right? So it's kind of just like a treatment that masks the underlying problem.
Mm-hmm. And that is like the case with almost most leftist social programs, well, like there are any other ones, that they basically tend to like make a problem part of like the government functions, right? Rather than to solve the problem, because solving the problem would getting rid of the government to cause the problem in the first place.
Yeah, I'm preaching to the choir, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man, what do you think of all the actually, before I transition to another topic, so Ashley said he had like 4 topics roughly he wanted to talk about. I think that probably maybe we'll save the other 2 for another time, because I don't know, I have a few like kind of recent topics to touch upon, but I can't imagine there's that much to say. But first I just want to look over the chat here. Let's see.
I have a little bit about everything.
We had our friend in the chat sorting out our audio issues. I'll have to cut out the first.
This is slightly old, but have we
minutes.
talked about Kyle Rittenhouse at all? Or is
I mean, there's always news with him. I think it's great that he hasn't backed down or apologized.
yeah.
I think he's an American hero, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it was so fucking because all this, like, leftists started infuriating me because basically they made the argument that because the guys that were like chasing him didn't necessarily have weapons on them, therefore he should somehow telepathically know that, even though these drugged out fucking leftist retards are just screaming and like chasing a guy with an AR-15. If you chase the guy with an AR-15, you probably have a weapon. And actually, one of them did. One of them pulled out a pistol on him. So
I just wanted to note there was some excitement in the chat about the idea of Estro Twinks infiltrating women and taking over. And also political gayism. I guess once we've invented the gay pill, seems like a solid strategy, all in drug strategy. But yeah, with Kyle Rittenhouse, I just it was pretty. It seems like clear cut self-defense. Like, it wasn't a surprise that those charges were, I think, dropped in the first state. And I think in Wisconsin, I think it's going to be the same story. I think that's how it works. I think it was in one state and now it's in the other.
Yeah, it's just alarming to me so many people are just fucking saying it wasn't self-defense. Like, it's so clearly self-defense. Like, if there's 5 people like chasing you, they can beat the fucking like snot out of you and kill you easily. Like, it's not like just one guy was chasing him; it was a whole mob.
Yeah,
So.
no, exactly. And that's a tricky thing too, is just like, imagine asking these people, at what point would violence in self-defense be justified? Like how how close does a mob have to like encircle you, right? Like how
Yeah,
Like-
then they'll make it like a mob justice argument or something.
Like, I have a very easy answer to, like, when it comes to when violence is justified. If you, for example, say like no trespassing, right, and then someone enters to think that they're not allowed to trespass, and you blow them up with a mine, then I think that's justified because they started it.
I think that if someone is chasing you and they pose a reasonably like physical threat, or like, okay, so for example, if someone's chasing you, you have an AR-15, you can reasonably assume that they have bad intentions and have like a knife or something.
Like, I would say if someone's chasing you, period, you should be able to shoot them.
Yeah, but like especially with the AR-15, it makes it a lot more clear. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes it obvious. Like, they could have a sign. It's just a sign.
That means they have no concern for their life, and that means they probably have something up their sleeve to fucking stab you in the throat with. So.
And actually, I was chased once. When I was like running until I found the cops. Right, I was running down like this road, and there was no one else there because of fucking like lockdown and bullshit, right? And then the police came, and then I guess they helped me, right? But like, if I had a gun, I would just have fired like immediately.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not necessarily. It is unfortunate that the fucking idiot died, but like,
Not really.
Fuck? Like, you fucking charged a guy with an AR-15. Like, yeah, I mean, I guess it's bad that he died, but like, empathy is like, you're a fucking idiot.
I don't care. Like, if you basically chase out to someone with a fucking gun, right? Then
yeah,
if
I mean, he
they
probably
died, I
tried
don't really have
running,
an
but you
sympathy
got
for that.
fucked
It's
up,
like
yeah.
it's like with the thing you mentioned. I heard about the like if someone is during, it's like a gang violence. If someone gets killed in a gang shoot with me, I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, a member of a violent gang got killed by another member of a violent gang. What a travesty.
Oh yeah, I'm not even saying it's a travesty. I'm just saying, I guess it's unfortunate that his life fucking led him there. Being an idiot and to do that shit. Again,
Well,
like,
yeah, but now he can't like run after
Show-
other innocent people with guns. So
he chose that shit, and I'm glad the Kyle was the one that came out on top.
oh yeah, me too.
Again, I just don't necessarily like the idea of people dying. I'm okay with it if it's justified in my mind, but I don't like it.
Yeah, I can't agree with that. This is saying, well, I'll accept.
It depends, I guess. If someone's like a gross monster, then yeah, probably I would be like, yeah, fucking kill him. But
and also, like, if someone, for example, had performed a circumcision, then they can die.
yeah, shit like that. We also say that shit about like rapists and like mutilators, like torturers, fucking people who like murder people. Like, yeah, we already treat people. Yeah, so it's fair. It's fair that I'm not gonna say you should give him empathy at all.
Like, I don't understand how people think it's like a controversial thing that people should be allowed to execute people who do that. Like, well, I guess it's. I mean, like, if the proof isn't there, then of course it shouldn't be done. But like, and also like, yeah, I do see this could be a controversial, but like, they did it a mutilator, not kill that a mutilator shouldn't be executed is somehow unthinkable. While a lot of people would justify executing rapists. It's like, what? No, that's like not. Mutilators are like far more justified to execute a rapist, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, and not
It's
only that, but
good,
they're
honestly.
rewarded for it. It's like it's in polite society. But yeah, I think that in
Yeah.
general, most of the laws surrounding when you're allowed to murder someone in self-defense are, I don't know. I think they seem a little bit ridiculous.
It depends on the state, but yeah, I would
I
agree.
think castle doctrine generally sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, but then the cops are assholes and they'll basically confiscate your firearm forever, and I'm like, even if you're proven innocent, I'm like, that's just property theft. Like, what the fuck? I spent $1,000 buying that gun, and I killed an Antifa retard with it, and now you gotta steal it from me?
So,
That's
what do you
horrible. Like,
guys?
at least they should
How
compensate you
excited
for the
are you
money.
guys for Biden's America?
I mean, like, I've lived in both the EU and Africa, and I'm kind of worried about Americas because you're gonna get all the bullshit we have in our countries, but in America, and you're not gonna get our benefits. You're only gonna get our problems.
I'm back. Did anything exciting happen while I was gone?
We're talking about Biden.
Yeah, we're talking about
Yeah.
I'm gonna wrap up the stream within the next, I don't know, like 10-15 minutes here. So
Cool.
we'll cover the other couple of topics another time.
Oh
I've
yeah,
written
cool.
I've written some like timestamps too, so I'll try to timestamp it a little bit.
But yeah, are you sure? Do you think that he won through a voter fraud, or is that just like cope? I'm not sure honestly at this point, but I'm willing to see either side.
Oh, I think it was definitely election fraud, but I don't think they're gonna be able to prove it.
Yeah, maybe.
So it's gonna be Biden's gonna be president, but just like nobody's gonna believe he's actually the president.
Yeah, possibly.
While we have a political climate where like both parties will just openly hunt conspiracy theorists.
I must say that your critique of the Republicans is something I very much like.
I've been watching a lot of Fox News since I moved back to America, and it's like surreal. Even boomers like my mom, they're like, oh, we don't watch Fox anymore. Now we watch Newsmax. Have you heard of Newsmax? And I'm like, of course I haven't. Like, that's on television. How would I have heard? But I started watching that. It's like a caricature. It's quite funny. News is pretty amusing, but
I think there's just going to be a lot more racial. I think what's going to happen in America is there's probably just going to be a lot more black, like identitarianism. And there's probably going to be like Charlottesville fights or something based around that.
But we should not refer to this BLM or like intersectional bullshit. We should not call it identitarianism because identitarianism is far more of a different ideological and philosophical standpoint, because what they're doing is like the bastardization of race based on faulty premise. Like they actually are not identitarians. The only reason why they're being called that was because a lot of conservative, so-called right-wingers who are actually really leftist, they basically were cucks and anti-racist. They basically started to call, so they basically want to like disavow like all the pro-identitarian people that are actually not leftists, are actually decent, right? In order to, so therefore they try to smear them by referring to leftists as identitarians when they aren't. So we should not like play the game of like these conservatives who are actually not really right, actual leftists, because then we're just like accepting their fact, which is wrong.
Okay, so there's black Nazi. Shit.
Yeah, we can just call them black identity politics.
Black Nazis, yeah.
Yeah,
No.
because like the difference is with identitarianism has like it's like no identity politics. Like the sort of like completely different concept of like almost no overlap at all.
We gotta get our Air Jordans and we gotta get a white tax and shit.
Okay, that's just identity politics, right?
Because you have to say it
that'd be so funny. That'd be so funny.
Shit. Yeah. And shit. Yeah.
Shit.
We have to get Air Jordans and shit. Wait, why do I sound like? Why do I even sound like
Yeah,
now? I don't know.
I think it'd be hilarious if that actually happened, though. There's like a white tax or something. I'm not sure if that would actually happen, but if it does, I'd just break down crying.
Good to see you, Fleet. Hello.
Nice to be here.
I was like,
Yeah.
if that happened, you're welcome to come and live with me, all you guys.
In South Africa. So
I
you
Since,
see,
that's my joke. Just you get a
That's-
joke, like.
fucking killed by black farmer raiders or whatever.
I mean, like I
Yeah.
also live in France a lot of the time, so.
since Derek said that he's gonna like be wrapping up the stream soon, like I feel kind of self-conscious now because I thought it was gonna be one of his usual like 5-hour streams or something, but now since it's a shorter stream, it's gonna be like 90% of the video is just me talking. Like, I'm sorry, that wasn't my intention.
Nice.
Yeah, sorry about that. I planned the time,
okay.
and then I realized that it's Thanksgiving later, and then I can't hang out with my friends on Thanksgiving if everyone's doing their family things, and then I planned that, and then.
I hate Thanksgiving
But
personally.
I'm probably just
Oh
gonna
my God, I
stream
do
like
too.
more frequently.
So this wasn't about the International Day for Violence Against Women or something.
Oh God, no!
Wait,
that day?
did they make that a day this month?
I think it's today.
Oh, that's
When
what
was
today is. Oh, I see. Did you see, there was a little bit of a twist on International Men's Day this year, which was feminists trying to appropriate it and making it about like women. Like there's basically there was actually a dedicated effort to femsplain International Men's Day rather than the usual, which is to either just totally ignore it or
So was
that's it.
was the take that it was about, I can already guess, men being allies to women. I'm guessing that'll have been one take, and then the other will have been patriarchy hurts men too. I'm guessing they went with that angle. Is that right?
I believe it was both of those all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I also heard that they basically say that they basically just use this like International Men's Day should like they say it should be about men helping women, like oh here's why women's rights are important and this why men should do like what the fuck like the gynocentrism about these people are like so insane that you can actually like it's like you like can materialize it. Does that make sense? That's how much it is.
Or did it tie into the thing where they tried to make Movember about women not shaving their mustaches?
What kind of women shave their mustaches? Somebody's plucked them.
Fair point.
But like, it's have you like seen like this an example of like extreme gynocentrism right lately? Because I think that I, for example, was like seemed like the most gynocentric thing I always said. It was so horrible. Like they basically literally said that prostate cancer is bad because men that have prostate cancer gonna lead to that women that need healthcare have a longer waiting line.
Yeah, I think you should just like shoot people who say that and just keep them
Yeah,
out.
me too. It's like they don't even see us like as
No,
like
I don't
any
think
like a
humanity is
human.
I don't think humanity is worth it if there's people like that. I think we should just kill everyone.
No, why don't we just kill all the people like that? That's better.
That's what I advocate for. There's a mass sterilization of the cucks. Just fucking do it. I'll ally with the radical feminists. So I'll be like, yo, you can fucking sterilize all these men because you hate men too. Let's do that.
Don't just make simping illegal. Don't make simping illegal. Make it impossible.
Yeah.
Derek.
Yeah.
Cocks are gone. I'll have my homo state.
Is it alright if I like link this stream to Liz Hobson on Twitter? I don't know. I think she might like it.
Yeah, I'd be down for that. Absolutely.
I posted in like 15 Discord channels already. If that's okay.
Yeah.
I tend to do that with someone.
Oh, I should mention, guys, my ICMI thing is up with the others.
Nice.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I noticed that when Paul Elam posted it on his main channel, it got more views there, and it also seemed to have like a slightly more flattering thumbnail, like you were smiling in his thumbnail, which is nice.
Ooh, I need to look at that.
But let's not forget, you wanted to review what their actual spin was that they put on the Men's Day.
Hmm?
Derek.
Wait, what?
you forgot to mention what the feminist spin on International Men's Day was, I think.
No, I think you
just
did.
No, we
speculate.
just kind of stated what it was like generally.
Yeah, it was just woman-splaining.
I think there
Oh.
might have been like a hashtag. I don't remember if I had found anything. I mean, I think I took like a screenshot at one point.
Yeah.
Maybe if I'm looking through my files later, because I do need to get my stuff sorted out.
Are you okay, by the way? You just sound really... I mean, I know I always sound really low energy, but you usually don't. You usually sound quite happy and, like, gay, but you don't today.
Oh, really?
Happy.
I don't know. I have a different sleep schedule now, so...
Oh, God.
I don't know.
I can relate.
Same here. Sort of. Hey guys, do you know what we call a woman who's blaming someone for something?
I don't know.
A woman?
Another
If a woman blames someone for something, right? What do we call that?
A woman.
I don't think it needs to be a gender term for that. I think they could just say that they're being blaming. I don't know what there's probably a specific term for that.
I have a term for women that are blaming people. I call it she blaming.
She blaming.
Woman.
Maybe it grows on us.
Makeup for my cosplay now.
Maybe woman wailing or woman weeping.
Woman wailing, I like that. Woman wailing.
Yeah.
Because you gotta make fun of them, like because of the way that they act. I mean, they have to be self-conscious of it. Make them a little bit more self-conscious of them being giant pussies or whatever.
Did you guys hear about the drama over at Random House over Jordan Peterson's book?
No.
Has he released a new one?
Yeah, so he's releasing a new book, right, called Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life, right? And, like, a bunch of employees at the publisher were, like, screaming and crying about it and, like, wanted to have it not be a thing.
I wonder how many rules for life there's going to be in total, though. Is it just going to be, like, a running series, like, as long as the Wheel of Time or something? And it'll, in the end, it'll be, like, 1,300 and whatever rules for life.
Well, it seems to follow Babylonian math, so...
12, though. Always in 12s.
Yeah.
I just find it, like, ironic that people are so fucking mean to Jordan Peterson after he was, like, overdosing and shit. It's just like, haha, fuck you, conservative shitlord. Like, I was just like, the guy nearly died. Like, can you just give him a little bit of a break?
Yeah, there wasn't much grace there. But this article just opens really funny. They said, during a tense town hall, staff cried and expressed dismay with the publishing giant's decision to publish Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life.
It says they cried?
They cried and expressed dismay.
That's actually quite funny.
I actually have a very interesting thing to say about all this. And that is that it's so fucking horrible that these people are like, oh my god, how dare they publish something I don't like? How dare someone take their money, who have a business, a publisher, and then also publish a book in order so they could make money, and the person who wrote the book, the author, can also make money. How dare they use their own private property to manage profits? Like, so awful, like, it's so fucking terrible. We need to stop that. Like, it's like these fucking status are these fucking... They're like so fucking unethical, it's fucking retarded, I can't deal with them. I think they're like all horrible. Like, they're so fucking awful. It's like almost like funny at this point how awful they are.
But if someone managed to actually prevent a book from being published, would that be, as to book burning, would it be like book abortion?
Yeah, but they're in favor of that, so I guess it doesn't... They think that abortion in the 9th month is exactly no different than, like, not having sex, and, like, abortion in the first week, so...
Technically, you wouldn't be aborting the book, you would be aborting the operation of creating the book.
Also, it's like sterilization.
Well, no, sterilization would be like crippling Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, financially crippling him, at least.
Or somehow, in whatever way is necessary to prevent him from writing the book. It would be the sterilization.
Okay, now I was a bit too dark, I apologize for going there. But the thing I wanted to say is that a lot of these people that want to, like, prevent people from buying books, all these hate speech laws and like all this bullshit. Like you cannot publish this because it's hate speech and all that. It's actually kind of funny because it backfired completely, right? Because a woman wanted to apologize, wanted to say in like want to publish something in France, right? That basically said that all men are awful and all women who love men are evil, and you become a lesbian when you realize that everything's how awful men are and all that. It was like myth-and like all the time, all based on patriarchy theory, which is feminism, right? And then they say that she was not allowed to publish that because it was hate speech. So the people who promoted hate speech basically had it. The more hate speech law had it like backfired when people their political persuasion did the same thing.
Yeah.
So I enjoy that. I have no sympathy for them
It's
having
obvious with their gynocentrism or misandry, but like, yeah.
But my point was more like the same crowd that basically wants to ban stuff all the time, right? And want to have all these restrictions on the market, right? When they get restricted on their market and they have their stuff banned, then I'm not going to shed a tear for them because I think they fucking earn it because they want that on others. Why can't they have it themselves?
Yeah, I guess his book is coming out March of 2021. And they described that town hall as having been emotional. He is an icon of hate speech and transphobia, and the fact that he's an icon of white supremacy, regardless of the content of his book, I'm not proud to work for a company that
How is
publishes
he a
him.
white supremacist? Oh my
No,
god.
he's a symbol. He's an icon of white supremacy. Regardless of the content of what he says, he's an icon.
But you need to understand what they mean by white supremacists. White supremacists mean people I don't like.
Well, you know what's funny, though, is you know who else is a white supremacist icon, despite her content?
What?
Taylor Swift.
Oh, yeah, that is true.
Yeah, fucking Taylor Swift.
She's a pretty blonde girl.
Same thing with Pepe, right? Pepe's artist came out and he was all like sad and pathetic about, oh, the Nazis took my frog away. But, you know, that doesn't matter. The artist's intention doesn't matter. So Pepe is literally a swastika. And so is Taylor Swift's face.
That's the reason why they made a murder episode about Taylor Swift.
Well, that thing has become like, has kind of like came back as like a normal meme, it seems.
Yeah.
It doesn't really look like it's seen as a white supremacist thing anymore. But yeah, it used to. That's what I've done.
Yeah, so apparently this article, it's much ado about nothing. It's just several employees complained and the company's just doing it anyway. And it looks like they haven't, like, cucked. They haven't, like, apologized or said anything like that. They just, like, are quietly, like, we're gonna do our business. Like, I don't know what your fucking deal is.
I like the part towards the end where they say it's like they're just trying to make money or something. Someone said that in that article. It's like,
oh my god, people who work trying to make money. What the fuck is it? Like these people are fucking communists. I'm sorry, but they fucking are.
Like, oh my god, this correction at the end. A previous version of the story said a non-binary employee spoke about how Peterson's new book will negatively impact them. In fact, the employee was speaking about their non-binary friend.
It's kind of interesting. Like if you like choose to believe that you are something weird, and then other people are disagreeing with you, like then you cannot then if you feel entitled to be upset about that, well, you can be upset about whatever you want, but like you're just choosing to suffer, which you are entitled to. But why the fuck should I suffer because of that?
I think we're about done, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of wrapping it up. I did find a few other articles to potentially talk about, but I don't think there's a whole lot to say. There is this thing about Logan Paul and what was it? Harry Styles and Candace Owens. You guys following any of that drama?
The only thing I know about Harry Styles is that he's an insufferable faggot, basically.
Yeah. That's part of it. You saw his picture, right, with him in like the dress. It's such a terrible dress.
Not even a nice dress. It's so just like it's like the sort of shit you would see in a modern art installation, basically, or like a Dadaist kind of thing.
Just curtains.
Was that the woke thing?
He was wearing curtains, and he was.
Yeah.
It was not a good look. But
What about Candace Owens?
Okay, so this JWille article links in Logan Paul, but I feel like we don't care what Logan Paul says. But with Candace Owens, she like made a thing of it about how it's an attack on masculinity, right? To destigmatize men wearing dresses and looking retarded. And of course, all the trad cucks are like, "Oh yeah, Candace Owens is so smart. You go, sister." I don't know. My hot take on it is like as dumb as the whole Harry Styles thing is, and how like I think it's just like a stupid gimmick. It's just like fuck Candace Owens. I just like she wears a suit all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just a
That's basically it. It's like, bitch, you wear a suit all the time, so eat a dick.
Yeah, there's no reason for you to, like, because again, this is why I fucking hate conservatives, is that they'll just like enforce like the male gender role on them again, and they won't do anything.
Well, the other thing that they don't understand, and this isn't like original, but they talked about it on HBR a lot, like before I'm mentioning it just now. So I can't remember exactly the words that Alison Teeman put it in, but it's basically masculinity is basically just it's what women want from men, or it's men's perception of what women want from their men. So Harry Styles actually was performing masculinity in a way by dressing like that, because the ideological message behind it was that he's doing it for women's benefit, to slay the patriarchy. So and that's part of like his personal hero narrative. So
yeah, I guess though, by that definition, virtually anything. I guess anything that's simping would be masculinity by that definition.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the reason why I don't find the definition so useful. Like, if I refer to something being masculine, if something is like more common with males, then it's masculine. If something is more common with females, then it's feminine.
So, like playing video games.
Masculinity with positive males.
Sure.
Like,
yeah, that works.
I just
like, I'm not
associate
sure if that's perfect, but
everything
it's better than
good
the
with
definition
masculine
I
and
have.
everything bad with feminine.
Yeah.
That's also a definition I'm okay with. I think those are basically both good in their own ways. They're both pretty honest.
Yeah.
But even like the way that so the traditional conservative view of it, I guess, just to steel man it, would be that these are expectations that we place on men because we need them, and specifically men, to help build society and keep society ticking forward, and so on and so forth. But like, the problem with their definition is that it just doesn't take account of change over time. So, like, for instance, there might have been a time when physical strength was of extreme importance to keep civilization going, to be able to like work a plow physically with your arms, or go down a mine, or whatever it might be. But in our digitalized world, it's just pretty meaningless because we've outsourced so much to machines, so there just isn't any utility anymore to that, really, apart other than like aesthetics, just men who want to look good basically for women. And outside that, you see this situation where strength, just using it as an example because it's like an obvious traditional masculine trait, the emphasis moves from physical toughness more towards like mental toughness and mental stamina, being able to perform lots of tedious projects in high stress environments in like the modern digital context. And that's basically the way that it works. You know, there's no point autistically screeching about it.
So
Earlier
that
when
is
we talked
only
about
a source of attraction if you also make a lot of money doing it.
Sorry, Derek, what were you gonna?
Oh, I was just saying that earlier when we were talking about like whether or not the future people would be more androgynous. I think that like with the way AI is, it's kind of evolving. Like it used to be, electronics were kind of like neat tools that were a little bit more efficient, or they were like toys. And now they're increasingly becoming things that like we rely on for a lot of like really fundamental survival, to the point where the role of like AI and new technology, like I wonder how much of it is like we take into account that there's like an expectation of things becoming more efficient just in general, but then I don't think people take into account this idea that like it's also taking on new roles, right? Which it would include a lot of things that you could call like parenting style roles. And then I think this would actually lead towards, I think, more of a move towards, yeah, but basically wouldn't see as much of a male gender role either.
I don't know. I'm kind of afraid of a future where it's like Papa technology and Mommy state.
There was a movie I saw called Mother, and that's kind of what the premise was. There's like some humans that are living in they're like hatched from like a cryo state, and there's a robot taking care of them, and it's all like a controlled sort of a thing because it's like a post-apocalyptic scenario, or so you're intended to think, and there may or may not be twists.
I'm drinking tea. Just thought I'd announce that.
What kind of
That's
tea?
because you're British. Tea is disgusting. You should drink.
Is there any rum in your tea? Oh no, wait, you don't like that.
No, there's no rum in it.
You need to become a fat American and just put lots of cream and sugar and.
I have blueberry tea. It's very nice. It's not really tea,
Yeah.
I don't think. It's.
I actually do like
sugar or
tea. I'm
whatever.
just being a shitlord, but yeah.
It's a very gay sounding drink.
Tea,
No, blueberry tea.
blueberry tea. Yeah, it does actually.
I mean, any kind of fruity tea is pretty gay.
I actually
Yeah.
started drinking Earl Grey again lately, and I refuse to put any sugar in it. And it's fucking bitter as fuck. Still, scented water, better than regular water.
Now that I actually have, I don't just have one table. I have 2 tables, and one table is dedicated entirely to tea.
I'm addicted to coffee. Like it.
I never drink coffee. I don't think I've ever finished a cup of coffee my whole life.
But don't. It's terrible if you get addicted.
No, it's
Good.
not.
And I won't.
Coffee is good for your healthy.
It's not good for your healthy at all. It gives you fucking like bad like teeth or something.
I like
Well,
to.
yeah.
Whatever, you
because
just
my
get your
teeth are really
teeth
in a
clean.
poor state.
You just get it washed off. You just rub charcoal on your teeth or whatever.
I mean,
I,
that's what I do. So
I used to be extremely addicted to caffeine products, including coffee and also just caffeine pills. But I stopped doing that like some months ago, and now like I do still drink coffee, and have pills sometimes. But I like to save it for when I'm really tired, because the thing is that, like you said, if you drink coffee all the time and if you're popping caffeine pills all the time, you build up an extreme tolerance to it, and you don't like feel the benefit of it anymore when you feel really tired. Whereas now, like if I'm tired because I've dialed back my use and I've lost the tolerance to it, so to speak, I can just have like 1 spoonful of instant coffee when I'm really tired, and like it immediately perks me up. It's great.
Do you just eat it dry?
No, I'm not sure if that's physically possible.
I
just
gonna
like-
ask. I was like
I either have caffeine pills or I just put the coffee granules like into some lukewarm water and then just swig it back in one gulp.
I literally have 2 modes. Either I drink no coffee at all or like 10 cups. I have no balance in between.
Yeah, the thing is that I don't enjoy the taste of it at all personally, so I just take it like medicine.
Okay, I
Am
think
a
this is
gender
like
trader and I
horrible.
like Am I a gender traitor if I like pumpkin spice lattes?
Yes.
No, that's
No,
fine.
you're a femboy, so you'd be a gender traitor if you didn't.
That's true.
That is
But then
also
again,
very true.
yeah.
Am I
That
also-
means
There's
I'm a
absolutely more
self-hating
than
woman.
2 genders. There's infinite genders. As many genders as you need.
But I just have one question. How do you calculate the pay gap between all those genders?
Calculate the what?
The pay gap between all those genders.
Oh, okay. Everyone has the most, the loudest mouth and the biggest boobs or something.
It will take hundreds of years for all of those genders to get advocacy groups to misread actual statistics to create all of those pay gaps.
But aren't they just all one advocacy group?
You know, some like the
Yeah.
things like these non-binary like 5-headed like balding like leftists when they get the male gender role like forced on them, I just like laugh. Like I just
That's
like
so fucking
I just
fun.
want to like freaking like just celebrate because I can just like say I told you so. I told you so, you motherfuckers. Like it's just so. It's so good. Like,
But you know what you know what I do sometimes? I masturbate to it. Like, you know, like for instance, there was that video that went viral on Twitter of there were these stupid the 2 guys who were 2 white guys who were BLM supporters or something, and they were like cheering on the rioters from their window, and the rioters just like threw stones through their window,
oh
and
yeah, I saw that.
That's fucking
We're on
amazing.
your side. We're on your side.
yeah,
It was weirdly
I-
wholesome,
and I-
actually.
yeah, and I masturbated to that video. I found it
Oh,
very sad.
come here to rape your white boy pussies, boy. Come here. This is so crazy. Like,
But that's actually kind of nice to hear because I thought I was the only one who masturbated to weird stuff. And Fleegan, don't tell them anything.
Oh, I don't want to remember what you told me.
I'm sorry, you wanted to know.
Yeah. It was weirdly satisfying. The only thing that would have made it more satisfying is if one of the stones actually hit them. Fucking retards.
Okay, then I would
I
judge.
don't endorse violence, but if you cheer on violence and you get attacked by that
endorse
violence,
Spider,
it
dude.
is.
Absolutely. I think they should.
I don't
get
endorse
all-
violence, but I also don't want it to go to waste.
I agree.
I think they all should get beaten with like fucking batons like in a row. Just like live cast it or something on YouTube, and then I'll masturbate to that.
Oh my god, do you guys want to hear something super funny I only told Fleegan?
Yes.
It was really funny. It was somewhere in Cape Town, right? When a communist party, right, wanted to protest against a school because people in the school had a private party, and they thought it was it was a white majority in the private party, right? But they want to call the school racist. They would put like an entire members of a communist party, all the body should protest against the school. And guess what happened? And I don't get. I'm gonna tell you. The police came and then just like sprayed them away with water, then threw a gas grenade at it, so they had to flee. So they literally washed them. They were like washed away, like when you're like washing away dirt from something with like with water. But it looked exactly like that. But rather than dirt, it was communist. Not really a big difference there. So it's like communists are like getting the big government, washing them away and putting like grenades. I'm like, I have no sympathy. This is fucking hilarious. I love that it was so enjoyable.
Yeah.
Just washed away like dirt.
Antifa getting videos of Antifa just getting fucked is so satisfying.
Especially when they are fucked by government agents. That's the best part.
Oh yeah, remember when they were complaining about like getting like fucking kidnapped or something? I was just like, I don't care if you're getting like kidnapped and being raped in Area 51. Fuck you.
Except they were just being taken like around the block and like
I mean,
asked
there's a
basic
lot of
identifying
people-
questions or something.
There's probably I know you were just like making a figure of speech, but there's probably a lot of people who would be willing to be raped if it was in Area 51, just to get to see the inside of Area 51. And fuck, I'd agree to it.
Dude,
Sure.
yeah, I mean, at that point it's not rape. You're consenting. I'd be like, yeah, I'll fucking get my ass raped or something to see them
It's
gray
probably
aliens.
a higher number than the number of people who are willing to like Naruto run through a field of like mines and bullets.
Yeah.
It really
Oh,
depends.
yeah.
Like if I would let myself get raped by aliens to see the inside of Area 51. That would be like a double win to some people.
Yeah, but the thing is, can you take pictures? You probably wouldn't be able, but you could probably see it. And the thing is that if they wipe your mind afterwards or something, like some like Men in Black shit, that's cheating. That's not a good deal.
Mm-hmm.
So Ashley, what do I title the timestamp for the first topic that you'd went over?
Just the future of the MRM. I think that was basically it, wasn't it?
Oh, I wrote that. That's literally what I wrote. Future of the MRM.
And the next one was like non-leftist critiques of Evo Psych.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the next time I stream, assuming you're available,
Yeah.
we can go through a couple more of those. And I need to do something about the Discord, because I think the way it's set up right now, there's too
by
many
the way,
rooms.
just,
It's kind of suboptimal.
It's not a huge problem, but there's one link in the description that's surplus to requirements. The one at the very bottom about like English ancestry and veganism. You might want to get rid of that because that's for one of the topics for the next stream.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll leave it in there then. It's just noted that that's for next time.
Okay.
That's something I want to see.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that I got a basic setup here. I'm a little bit miffed that my new little microphone thing didn't work. So maybe I'll give that a
By
try
the
another
way,
time. But
I know I've referenced it before. I think you clicked on it because I went back and had a look. That little like interactive map that shows loads of different like demographic variables for Victorian Britain. It's pretty cool, isn't it? Pretty useful.
yeah, well, it looks like it's really powerful. It looks like there's a lot of crap you can add to it.
Yeah.
That was the one that was linked for age gaps in marriages being relatively rare in the past.
Yeah. I think Karen Strawn's actually commented on that as well. Like, before she got banned from Twitter, she was, like, digging up these old, like, parish town marriage records to discredit the to feminists. She was arguing with them who were saying that it was the norm for, 18-year-old girls to marry, like, 50-year-old guys. Doesn't appear that that was ever the norm, at least not in, like, the West among normal people.
Well, the closest
Well,
way that
there's a
could
divide,
happen.
right? There's the east-west. There's like a certain line, but I think it was actually not even. I think it was supposed to be slightly worse in the West, or I think it was just that people married younger in the East. But either way, on either side of that, you didn't see like crazy disparities in age.
Yeah,
Do you think
you're
we can
talking
talk about Islam when it comes to that?
You're talking about the Heinel line, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's so the it's like a division of Europe into two areas with different historical feudal systems that had all kinds of like seems to have all sorts of interesting correlations with different evolved behaviors, like the countries inside the Heinel line, which are mostly in northern and western Europe, are more individualistic, had marriage later generally, so more towards the late 20s, have somewhat higher IQs than countries outside the line, etc., and so on. So like Ireland, for instance, is outside the line, whereas Britain's inside. So yeah, it's interesting.
Law, actually.
It does, doesn't it?
But also something I would like to say is that how...
I should just clarify that so that people don't think I hate Irish people. I'll just say this. My feelings about Irish people are very complex. I'll just leave it at that.
That's all our feelings about Irish people are working completely honest.
But you can't hate on Dave Cullen. He's a nice man.
Yeah, he's cool. He's a rare-based Irishman. Yeah.
What's your opinion on the Scots?
Sometimes annoying, but not as annoying as Irish people.
That makes perfect sense actually, and I know because I am Scots.
I mean, it'll be influenced mostly by culture rather than genetics.
Well, that is something I can discuss, but it's probably going to take a long time. I don't think we have that time right now.
Oh yeah, okay. I mean,
of course,
never did.
I don't agree. I think it's like all genetics, but I appreciate the fact that that's a very controversial take. So whatever.
Yeah, I pretty much
Derek,
agree
you
with
again.
you, but to explain exactly how I agree with you would take too long time for this live stream.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I'm not sure if this is like a good regular time for a stream or not, but I can kind of do any time. Cause I just did this one because I wanted to do one before Thanksgiving. But I guess to most of you guys, that's irrelevant. I guess only Toto, you're the only other American here.
that's true.
I don't know.
Well, generally speaking, for me, it's usually about an hour too early. Like I sometimes can make it for the beginning, but not always.
It would work for me, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, on this day.
I'm pretty sure that this time is around the time I normally did them, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
to me, it's opposite. It's like weird to stream during the afternoon. I also might start playing Final Fantasy 14. Maybe I'll try to stream playing Final Fantasy 14.
I mean,
Is
for
that
me,
the,
What the hell
And I
is
can
that?
at least stream while I'm sitting in my room playing a video game. I can at least be a little bit.
Wait, is that the MMO or the
Yeah, that's the second time they tried to do an MMO, and it seems unanimously that people think they did a really good job.
It is, yeah. I actually have a few characters out there, I think, but I don't ever play.
Well, like the base game is pretty cheap. I think it was just like $20 to start, and then you get a couple weeks free. Then I guess
Oh
you
wait, so
later
you're
decide
playing
to
that
do-
game, then I can join you.
But then it's monthly after that, which is what I don't like.
I could be your tank or some shit.
I was just gonna
Also-
say that the time you started, Derek, is ideal for me since like I'm trying to have a more sensible sleep schedule now because it was like 9 p.m. for me when you started in my time. So
All right, well I might stick to sometime kind of around this time.
Very fair. Also,
Okey-dokey.
Maybe a little
the
bit
thing
more
I
often. I'm
posted
also,
in
I'll
library
rebrand my
stays
channel, but I can't think of a thing because I only want to change it once. I don't want to change it every day.
Very good.
I'm gonna go
But,
get that. I'll see you guys later.
All right, keep it
Okay.
easy.
Have a good time. And if you looked at the thing I posted on library, like this feminist comic book, I'm not sure. I tried to get through it. I had to stop after like the first 3 short chapters because it's kind of hilarious, but it's also very frustrating. Might be something for a very, very casual stream. I'm not even
Yeah,
sure
let
if
me
it's
see.
fair to make
Did you
fun
put
of
it in
that.
Where did you link it? Oh, right here. Feminist therapy? Or the... Oh,
the
this one
big
here.
feminist butt.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
1P. Like I'm not a feminist, but some of the writers are actually known feminists. Some of them are like just random Twitter thoughts. I guess they can't be
That
called
looks
thoughts.
awful.
You're so. I love your humor. You're like so funny. I love it.
I think next time we'll take a...
I think it's gonna take us to actually read it first because then we can pick the parts. Like everything I read so far it makes no fucking sense. Like to a level that I've rarely seen something that makes this little sense. You don't know they're using allegory, but and metaphor, but you don't get what they're trying to say. It's actually quite amazing in how stupid it is.
Oh yeah, I'm totally gonna, I'm gonna read this, and then we can look at this next time. This is funny. So it looks like
But
this is fairly long. Wow. So it's a couple hundred pages. It looks like.
And there's 2 issues too. Like we
Yeah,
probably would
it's
have to
100 pages per
pre-select
issue.
the.
It looks like. Wow. Okay, well I'll look at that next time. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this one up here.
But
You guys
before
have
you
any-
do it, I just need to say one thing.
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask for any closing thoughts.
Oh, sorry.
Go for it.
Oh, I can just say that 2 things to say. One is that, well, that seems to be 2 feminist issues. And yeah, but that was my actual point. My point that I wanted to come to have across was more that yeah, that is that people say like, oh, I'm not a feminist, but I still believe in equality. Oh, I'm not a feminist, but and all this stuff, right? They are stupid. I agree with they are stupid, but like in one very like fucked up way, they do have a point. And what I mean by that is that when people like say that, oh, all versions of feminism, that was good, I just don't think it's needed anymore. And it says like, oh, but equality is generally a good principle, but they are just saying too far. Like saying those statements are, I hate that. It's like absolute bullshit, because why would you say equality is inherently a good idea? It's not. Why would you say, well, feminism used to be good and it's needed in some parts of the world, when that's absolutely, completely false? Like, it's so ironically speaking, the feminists have a point there that I agree with. They're right for the wrong reason.
I'm just gonna head off and do some toast. See you guys later.
Yeah, it was nice to talk to you again.
And you.
But I do make sense, right?
No, yeah, I hear you on that. I'm not sure if the comic is the same sort of a deal, because I think they're probably just unironically feminist, and it's you can just tell by the style where it's going. But I'll have to read it to figure out, what they mean by it.
It's
No,
going to be
that's-
a little bit of a sacrifice to actually read through it, because I literally had to stop like after the first 3 short stories, like for a couple of days. it's you have to take a scientific, like as a researcher, looking at it like someone would look at a dissected animal, to actually, I think, mentally get through it unscathed as much as possible.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine it's going to be great at face value.
Fun fact is that you haven't heard me, because we haven't chatted in a while, is that I like how to do the most politically biased university course, right? And me and my mother talked a lot about the courses, right? And she read a lot of the material, right? And that made her like Murdoch much more than she did.
That's pretty funny. Yeah,
I
it
agree.
sounds like your college is kind of rough as far as.
Oh my god, it's
goes.
horrible. I hate this college. But now, this course was so awful that we are having a gender studies course coming up next. And I'm actually looking forward to that, because it's going to be so much better than what we already have. That's how bad it was.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and end this stream right now. And for the next one, yeah, we'll look at the next couple of topics that Ashley wanted to discuss, as well as maybe this like silly feminist comic. But I'll have to probably give it a pre-read instead of just going through it live to kind of figure out what it's all about.